Hey, what's up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Correction X. So this week so first of all, this is a Fancast about Fox's freshman show covering one time stream, one timeline, one story thread of mutant kind as they are represented in the Marvel Universe. So this is kind of an extension of the X-Men universe started by Bryan Singer. And this week aired episode number 10, titled 3X1 or 3x1, depending on how you want to pronounce the title. Here with me, as always, I have my fellow E2KG Entertainment Series co-host, Mr. Dave Pecci. How you doing, Dave?
Good. How are you, man?
Good. So this is our inaugural episode of 2018. So we are back on our home YouTube channel of the E2KG Network. We will be syndicating this episode and the other episodes of our show over on the GWW Radio or Geeks Worldwide Radio. But we are going to be trying to get back to our own channel to actually host our live shows now that our time in purgatory is over.
You and I didn't get much of a break from podcasting for entertainment.
No, we didn't because Fox pulled the trigger early. So, and that's going to form a chunk of our discussion about what the heck is going on with the show and why can't we ever stay informed of the show that we are dedicating a whole podcast to. So, let's go ahead and get started right there, Dave. So, we have kind of struggled to keep up and understand exactly what's going on with the show and what the plan is. And part of that is because, so first of all, I mean, look, we both work full-time day jobs. And I just don't, when I get hurt, so this is one area of geekdom that I participate in, but I read comic books, I play games, I watch movies, TV, and I have I do hardware reviews, and so that requires a chunk of time just playing around with technology. So I don't spend my evenings dumpster diving into the internet and tracking down every single entertainment thread that exists.
Again, we're not a professional podcast by any means. We don't do this for profit, so we're not all intense. So yeah.
Right. We do the best that we can with the time that we have allotted. It has always been a bit of a mystery exactly what was going to happen with this show when it kicked off and we had the understanding. Well, first of all, it was difficult to understand exactly how many episodes had been contracted for by Fox. I'd heard 10, I'd heard 11, and I'd heard 13. It looks like it's technically 13, although what I see now is that it looks like the finale is going to be a 2-part, 2-hour special, which is really episodes 12 and 13 shown back to back. So that was one problem. I've spent a little more time this week researching, and it looks like the way the show is unfolding may have very well have been how Matt Nix, the TV show's co-creator and showrunner, may have been how he planned it out in the first place. What it looks like is, I read some quotes from him, and he is a fan, which is delightful to see because he has the same mentality that you and I do, Dave. For anybody who has watched the E2KG Entertainment Series, you will know that kind of our shtick is that we are choosing to specifically focus on what I call the short format series or the British television style series, which is short order series that are anywhere from usually 6 episodes in length to about 13. Dave and I have made a creative decision that the E2KG Entertainment crew and series is not going to focus on the full 22 to 24 episode American style television seasons because it's just too much and it's too little variety. Like if we were covering a 22 episode show, we could probably only do that show, maybe one other, and we'd be stuck doing that show for 9 months out of the year. So doing these short order things allows us to cover Netflix content, Amazon content, content on other non full blown cable network shows, and it allows us to kind of hop around and squeeze in shows, typically covering 3 to 4 shows per year. So that's just our preference. Matt Nix, in some of the quotes that I found from him, indicates that that's what he's also interested in, that he prefers the short format. He feels he can tell a tighter story and draw a season to a conclusive end. His feeling was that, and I'm paraphrasing and maybe putting some words in his mouth, is that with a 22-episode season, you tend to get episodes where you meander. And that's definitely true. In a 22-episode season, most shows spend a chunk of those episodes kind of going off track. And
there's
not
a lot of fluff.
Yes, yeah. So it may very well have been. So, of course, again, going back to our confusion, at least I thought, and I think, Dave, you thought too, that when we saw that they were greenlit for 13 episodes, we thought this was a standard half-season introductory deal where a new show will get greenlit to do half a season, and what they hope is that somewhere in the fall months, in the late fall months, they will get picked up to do the additional 9-10 episodes. It looks now like that was never Matt Nix's intention. He only wanted to do a half season length, which just makes it kind of weird in how the show runs and kind of where it's seated, because it starts right alongside all of the new fall premieres, and usually if you're going to wrap up a half season, you do that going into the winter hiatus, the holiday hiatus. They didn't do that. They crossed over and wrapped around into the start of the mid-season premieres. So that's just kind of an interesting dynamic. And again, it's just kind of weird that we get one episode and then a 2-episode season finale. Now, again, what Dave mentioned, we're getting off to an earlier start. We did not get nearly the break we were planning to. The gaming crew got, I think, almost like a full month off before we're live with the gaming coverage next week. But the entertainment guys, which are right now only Dave and I think we had 1 week off. We wrapped up The Punisher, and we're right back in this. We had a week off wrapping between the Christmas and New Year's, and now we're right back in the seats. And that's because Dave and I both understood that the episode that aired this Monday was not airing until next Monday, so we thought we were going to get 2 weeks off. Rag on Google all you want to. Thank goodness that I have a habit of periodically checking my Google Now feed a couple times in the morning, and then again a couple times in the evening, because that's where I found out and realized that this show was going to air on the 1st. It was at the top of my Google Now feed. So thankfully we caught it, and we are on the dime, because it would have been not good for us to get started for our own second season already off kilter. It's very important that we get off to a clean start this season, because certainly life will make things wonky as we go on. So it was important for us to get kicked off, and we have.
Yeah. And then next week there's a break, and then we have the 2-hour finale on the 15th.
Correct. Right. Yeah. Again, as far as we understand right now.
Yeah. So, I mean, who knows? They could separate it, or who knows? Right.
Because as I said, everything that we read and understood as far as scheduling indicated that this show was going to start on the 8th. And then at some point, Fox decided to pull the trigger early. So the good news is that I also had some severe concerns that the Disney-Fox merger, again, back when I believed that whether or not they were going to get a season extension to do another 9 episodes to go to 22, I was concerned that the Disney-Fox merger was going to interfere with that, and things were going to be put on hold, and decisions weren't going to get made. It looks like at least this show will not be impacted by that, because, as I said, it looks like Matt Nix actually had intended to run it exactly the way it's going down.
So maybe he predicted it was going to happen, and so he kind of formatted the show where Disney would want it.
I don't think so. The quotes I read were all the way back before the season even started. I think it was just Matt Nix wanted to do a 13-episode season from the get-go. Again, mirroring other shows that you and I have watched and covered, Dave, like Marco Polo, like all the Netflix stuff that drops for Marvel, and like Dark Matter, right?
But I'm just wondering if he predicted that Disney would want to continue the show, because it's because it's under Fox still, I imagine now, or is it technically under Disney?
It's under Fox, and it'll go over to Disney when they cut over. But I guess what I'm saying is the quotes I read were so early that there were no discussions even going on of the Fox Disney merger at that point, because these were all quotes from him last summer as they were wrapping up filming to go into the season premiere. So all right, so let's go ahead and start running through the episode 11 breakdown. So Dave, if you want to go ahead and try and do your best to give us a synopsis of that while I try and get the social media out.
Yeah, absolutely. This episode, I wasn't too interested in it, mainly because I feel like it was a very talking heads episode. And it kind of annoyed me, because we had such a long break, and then you come back, and there wasn't much going on with this episode. And I mean, there was only really, I can't even say there was anything that was like, surprise, surprise. Like, we got the first mention of Polaris's dad. And it wasn't even like, oh, your dad's Magneto. And actually, what we do know is Polaris doesn't actually know that her dad is, or maybe she does and she's just playing coy, but it appears that she doesn't know her real dad is this evil person. And the only other big reveal that we got was the Hellfire Club is around, the other members, but we don't know much about them. It was just, there just wasn't much to it. To me, it just felt like a filler episode. And it was just, I don't know. I guess I was expecting something more. There were some cool action scenes. I did watch the trailer for the finale, and I hope this trailer, like, I know I'm talking more about the trailer than the actual episode, but I feel like they're setting my hopes up because the trailer talked about the X-Men, and I feel like there might be an X-Men cameo coming up, or at least they might be leading us to think that there's one coming up in season 2. In the trailer, it shows Polaris talking to somebody about kind of the X-Men kind of want Polaris to join them. And so I'm wondering, is that somebody inviting them that's a friend of the X-Men, or is that an X-Men member directly inviting Polaris? So I'm hoping the season finale is going to be something incredible. Maybe the season finale would be great with a Brotherhood reveal too. But I don't know. I'm just kind of depressed over this episode.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. Are you absolutely certain it was her talking to the X-Men about joining, or was it maybe her being talked to about joining the Hellfire Club?
I'm not sure with that trailer. Did you see the trailer for once?
I haven't. I put myself on blackout for those.
Okay.
I never want to know what's coming the following week.
No, I'm not quite sure. It seemed like the person had mentioned X-Men in the trailer, and it looked, if you ask me, she kind of looked like a Jean Grey or a Rogue. Maybe I'll throw you a picture.
Okay. Yeah, because I would, from the setup for this episode, I could definitely see her being asked to. So my prediction about the Hellfire Club, just to jump ahead, is so the storyline. Oh, by the way, if you didn't know, you should know by now. This is a spoiler show. We are going to talk about the episode. We do these discussions to talk about. We do these discussions we do these podcasts targeting an audience of people who have already watched the episode that is under discussion. So if you haven't actually watched the episode, please stop the podcast now, go back and view that, and then come back and talk to us. So from the setup of this episode, so we see an African American character. I love the camera work that they did to bring him on screen. It opens, if I'm not mistaken, it opens with you having a camera shot of his hand. I think that the Cuckoos are there, but you haven't seen the person sitting in the seat, and then they slowly pull back and reveal who he is. So you get a lot of anticipation about who's the actor who's going to be playing this role. I wasn't exactly sure who it was going to be. I thought it was going to be, I want to say that the guy's name is Lance Reddick. He's an African-American actor who I think was on Fringe, but I know him mostly, Lance Reddick. I know him mostly from a lot of the video game voice acting work that he does. And actually, he was the concierge or whatever in the hotel in John Wick, and that's who I actually thought they were going to have playing the role. But what I love is you see the ring and you know if you know the Marvel mythology, you know it's the Hellfire Club ring, and so I thought that was pretty awesome. So he talks in his dialogue with the Cuckoos about that he was tasked to rebuild the Hellfire Club. I mean, he mentions that they have investors, or he mentions the Inner Circle, which is an organizational structure within the Hellfire Club. You wonder if I guess I'm kind of hoping or assuming that Inner Circle is the same Inner Circle that we would think it would be, and that it would be Sebastian Shaw and Emma Frost and some others, depending on exactly which spoke of the mythology they're going to transit down. But he talks about, like I said, that he was commissioned to rebuild the Hellfire Club. It looks, and I'm like, well, where are the other Hellfire Club members? Is it just him and the Cuckoos? And then I thought, I wonder if the arc of the story of the Gifted is going to be how, because we've talked about this potential bifurcation of the mutant underground, and then that's how you bring in a Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, right? That some of the mutants on the mutant underground get tired of fighting with kid gloves on all the time and splinter off and become a more radical and extremist branch of the organization, which would kind of fit because a lot of what's going on in the show now is focusing on current societal issues, issues of racism, issues of ethnicity, issues of equality, which has historically been what the mutants in Marvel have always been about. It's why they were brought into the Marvel universe, to have those discussions of quality and inequality. So I've been thinking, okay, so the way we get to the Hellfire Club, and I'm wondering if it's going to happen in the season finale, is you get 4 mutants at a minimum, I'm thinking, that are going to splinter off from the mutant underground and kind of reform the Hellfire Club and essentially take on the role of your Brotherhood of Evil Mutants in this mythology. And I guess maybe my speculation is maybe Polaris is one of them. Either Andy or Lauren. I don't know that it would be both, but certainly one of them could. We're back from this episode, I think, thinking that it's maybe it's Lauren. Sorry. From this episode, I think I'm back to thinking it will be Andy, because it was Lauren who was pushing to utilize their powers to bring the building down, and Andy who refused in the last episode. But this episode, it seems like now it's Andy who's back to dealing with the teen angst and seems ready to tip over and become an evil mutant. And I'm not sure who else it might be after that. It could be Blink. She was definitely siding with Polaris this episode to partner up with the Cuckoos. Even though I keep wanting to call him Sunspot, even though Eclipse or Marco was advocating that they not work with the Cuckoos. So that's 3 people it could possibly be. But I feel like there need to be 4, and I don't know who the 4th might be. So yes. Yeah, go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, I don't really know. I wasn't really thinking about them conspiring to join the Hellfire Club or any of that when I was watching it. I don't know. I have nothing to add. Sorry.
No, that's fine. So out of this episode, so again, just to kind of re-roll the synopsis. So basically, It's the exit side of the rescue from Trask Industries, from the raid on Trask Industries. So you have the Cuckoos, who are fully revealed. Fox is playing around with it a little bit. They are referred to both the Cuckoos and as the Frost sisters. It is apparent that their taken last name is actually Frost, which again sends vibes of good schoolboy giggly joy whenever they reference the mythology. So the Cuckoos have been outed. The Mutant Underground knows that they've been manipulated. We have the mutants trying to deal with the death of Dreamer, who was shot last episode by Trask. You have Agent. What's the agent's name now? I'm dumping his last name.
No, that opening scene was good though. I kind of appreciated that. They gave a good remembrance to Sonya.
Yeah. So Agent Bell. So you have Agent Bell dealing with the death of Agent Weeks, who was kind of his partner in crime, but also Agent Bell kind of leads him down a path that gets him killed. And you also have Agent Turner kind of flipping back, right? The Strucker's parents had kind of convinced him to stand up, that to believe that there's a threshold. Agent Bell's wife kind of repudiated him slightly for doing evil in the name of their daughter, which she didn't approve of. But then Agent Weeks gets killed, and now all bets are off, and it's back to being a big old fight. So you have all that transpire kind of on the front end of the episode, and then the Cuckoos come and tell them that that they have to take down the Hound problem, and that now matters have actually been made worse. And we have a piece between Agent Bell and I'm forgetting Dillahunt's name too, and Dr. Campbell, showing him that they have been working on a way to make mutant powers work together. Now it looks like what they've done is they've taken the data that they obtained from the Strucker children, as well as the studies of Reed's father, and what they've done is they've figured out a way to allow mutants to merge and use their powers in tandem without necessarily a genetic link. So they've basically enabled the power amplification that the Strucker children are able to pull off because they're brother and sister, and have created a device that links two mutants together and allows them to combine their powers regardless of their blood relationship to each other. And so Campbell and Turner go on the offensive and look to take down another mutant enclave as kind of a field demonstration to get approval to seek additional funding to expand the Hound program. So the Struckers decide that they're going to leave. They don't trust the Cuckoos, and they're highly afraid that the Cuckoos will manipulate them and potentially manipulate their children to wreak a lot of havoc and destruction. So they take off and try and head down to Mexico.
Which is what they talk about too. Is that's when their end plans is getting the Strucker twins back into the Hellfire Club, because the originals were.
Yes, yeah, and so on the way down to Mexico, they stop at a way station. Wes, the illusionist, is there, and so he and Lauren are reunited. There's a little bit of teen love going on between them, and then eventually the Sentinel services and the Hounds show up at that base. The mutants from the Mutant Underground HQ have to sortie to try and support them and help them out. And in the course of that fight, Andy gets a severe knock on the head. And as the show wraps up, what we find out is that it's the Cuckoo sisters who manipulated the whole thing. They tipped Sentinel services off. They telepathically manipulated the truck driver to tip Sentinel services off so that they would find the Struckers at that camp in an effort to force the Mutant Underground to realize that they would have to go on the offensive and take down Trask Industries one last time, to kind of set us up for the season finale. So Dave, what of all the character progression that we've see in this episode, what struck you as your favorite character interaction or piece or progression? You can go ahead and junk in the character interaction, character chemistry from this episode as well.
That's such a hard one. That, like I said, the only thing that really struck out to me, character interaction, was the one between one of the Cuckoos sisters and Polaris. And you kind of see her after that talk where she doesn't want to talk about her real dad. And, you know, where the Cuckoos sister says, oh, your dad's a king, you know, among the Hellfire Club, recognized. And you see Polaris look at her, you know, her magnetism in her hands. And right after that, she slams the vault door. She's just pissed. It's like, wow, like she's got a temper. So that was the biggest character scene that struck out to me.
Okay, as far as character progression, kind of moving on to
it just seems to me that she's gonna go bad. I don't see her joining the X-Men. You know, whether she starts up this version of the Brotherhood or she joins, you know, the Hellfire Club or some, you know, something along those lines, I feel like we're going to see.
Yeah, I could definitely see the notion of her perpetuating her father's legacy and joining the Hellfire Club. And like I said, kind of creating that Time Stream's branch of a reinvigorated or restarted Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, and unfortunately that potentially putting her on the opposite side from Marco, who is really taking a firm stand. So I would say for me, the character progression piece that I loved the most from this show was probably Marco's speech in his argument against Polaris about
the reverse of what I said.
Right. Yeah. So there is a scene where they are arguing. I think it's the first. It's either the. So there are two arguments, I think, about whether or not they're going to do what the Cuckoos sisters suggest and go to take down Trask in the Hound program once and for all in a frontal assault, right? And in this particular argument, again, I can't remember if it's the first or the second. Maybe it's the first, but Thunderbird has gathered the leads of the Mutant Underground on the lower level to have this discussion about what they're going to do. I think it's the second argument, because the first argument is right after the Cuckoo sisters leave when they come and make this proposal.
It's also an interesting play because you have Sonya, who's one of the 5 leaders. You know, she bails out, and she was one of the tiebreakers. So now you have this, you know, unbalancing of leadership. So you can already see that there's going to be some, you know, there's going to be a split because you don't have an equal leadership anymore.
No, that's interesting. I didn't even pick up on that numeric piece there. So so they go down to have this discussion. One of the best lines, in my opinion, is when Marcos says that, you know, the X-Men didn't leave us behind and entrust us with the safety of the mutants because we could kill, right? We could have done that the whole time. And he goes on to say, you know, we have to be better than that, and we can't compromise our principles. And I thought that was the most, because again, first of all, it gives you kind of giggly joy whenever there's a reference to the larger mythology of the X-Men. That reminder that the X-Men were there and there was some kind of turnover to Thunderbird and some others to perpetuate the Mutant Underground and help people out. But I think it means so much to the story that they're going to continue that, because you kind of there's a big distinction between these guys and the X-Men, right? When you think about the whole cinematic mythology and even think about it in context of the comic books. I was thinking about this the other day. The X-Men had resources, right? They had their uniforms, they had their outfits, they had Cerebro, they had the Danger Room, they had an SR-71 Blackbird, for Pete's sake, right? These guys are getting in old broken down vans and racing over to this other site to try and save the Strucker children. Whereas, you know, in the movies, the X-Men had all sorts of crazy equipment. These guys don't have those resources, and they're this weird group that is structurally like a step above the Morlocks, but also not quite the X-Men. So to me, it's very important for them to harken back to those principles and things that the X-Men stood for. And I thought it was a big step forward for Marcos to be the one who kind of makes that stand in the group. It's not voiced by Thunderbird, who's kind of wallowing in grief right now at Sonya's death, and desperately just trying to hold on to the notion of him occupying that position of leadership. I think it'll be interesting as this show goes on too. One of the key story elements in comic books, and one thing that they frequently do to reset the status quo, is change leadership. So if you look at the X-Men, the comic, they were historically led by Scott Summers, but there was a point where Storm lost her powers because she was shot by a weapon that had been created by Forge that stripped her of her mutant powers. And she challenged Scott Summers for leadership despite being depowered. They fought in the danger room. She was able to snatch off his visor, and she actually took over leadership of the X-Men for a period of time. And then eventually Scott Summers came back. There were periods where Wolverine led the team, I believe. So it would be interesting and very kind of comic booky, in a nostalgic kind of throwback kind of way, to see Thunderbird tell Marcos to take over for a period of time. And I think that would just kind of be an interesting reset of the status quo.
Yeah, that would be really good. Or in case like Marcos, decides to split up and he's like, all right, I need to find the X-Men. So you're in charge, why I go do this or whatever. That would be kind of, or if or Thunderbird goes off and finds somebody of relevance from the comics. I mean, not Marcos, Thunderbird.
Right. Favorite character interactions and chemistry this episode for me, it's going to sound weird because it's the same actress, but I love the Cuckoos on screen. I love whatever they're doing, and I guess she's shooting the scenes separately, and then they're blending the video, but I love, I just looked up her name the other night, and now I can't find it because she's not in every single episode. I'd nab it. I've got to look this up. What is her name? Esme Frost. And so the name of the Cuckoos are Esme, Sophie, and Phoebe. To which Blink says, I think she calls them Spunky, or just it's and again, that's a stark difference too, right? And I love how they're painting that difference between the Hellfire Club and the Cuckoos, because the Cuckoos are always dressed to the nines. They have great heels. They're always well coiffed. They're not living in the dirt with the rest of the mutant underground. They are living as the Hellfire Club was always about, them being very ostentatious and very elaborate, and always being very well heeled. So it's nice that they're kind of painting that out. So the actress's name is Skylar Samuels, and like I said, I guess that she is, even when it's Esme, Phoebe, and Sophie all on screen at one time and completing each other's sentences, and there being this dialogue-based handoff, mid-sentence between them. I guess she's filming those scenes separately, but I love how it's the same actress on screen saying fragments of a given sentence and having a completely different expression on her face at sometimes. I love how they're doing that. So that is my favorite character interaction or character chemistry, even though it's technically the same actress from this episode. So you mentioned some things about where you were dissatisfied with the plot and the movement throughout this episode. Any plot holes or other missteps that you felt kind of were takeaways?
I don't know. It wasn't as captivating. I feel that there was just a lot of filler, and I don't know. I feel like they could have added a little bit more into the Hellfire Club. Maybe a Sebastian Shaw, throw us a bone, at least a name would have been pretty nice. but we don't even get the tip of that. So,
yeah, I actually came down on this episode a lot different than you. I guess I was caught up in the emotion a little bit of being excited that we were getting this episode a week earlier than planned. Quite frankly, I was excited about kicking off our network coverage for the season earlier than planned and kind of getting up on the horse and very quickly getting oriented to do the podcast. But I was actually pretty pleased with this episode and the nods to, again, the X-Men mythology, the mention of the X-Men, the full realization of the Hellfire Club, such as it's going to be on the show. Seeing all three sisters, at the end of last episode, we only saw they had one line, right, with them all on screen at one time. And I loved that this episode we got to see both them all together, but then also acting independently. As Esme mentioned, they did the divide and conquer. And then Esme kind of revealing to Polaris more of her legacy. I guess for me, plot holes, story missteps, things that I didn't like from this episode. I didn't like I don't like them thrashing Jace Turner as much as they are. I don't like how he was a virulent crusader against the mutants, and then they flipped him over to being more sympathetic, and his wife getting through to him.
Yeah, that was also annoying too, because he's still very back and forth, and they just at this time they just need to make it: is he good or is he bad?
Yeah. I like the struggle. I understand that, but I just felt like it was a little too quick to thrash him right back to his old position, and him not understand or not get that that there's new mutants on the scene that he's not. I mean, he knows Marcos and Polaris. He hasn't spent any time in dialogue with Thunderbird. He knew Sonya. He also, I'm sure his law enforcement guts are also telling him that Campbell killed Sonya and it was not just an accident. So I don't know. That was a little too quick for me, with no regret or just kind of uncertainty in that character shift. So you watched the trailer for the next show, the next episode. Anything you're hoping to see out of that next episode?
And let me read you the description of the next two. So we have Extraction and X-Roads. Extraction is Dr. Campbell attends an anti-mutant summit, attempting to take the Hound program national, and some of the team at Mutant HQ goes on a dangerous mission to stop his efforts. Polaris learns more about her past and makes a crucial decision that could have impactful consequences. Meanwhile, the Mutant HQ comes under attack, and with everything to lose, relationships are put to the test and alliances shift. So that's it for the description for both of them. I'm excited because with this whole Polaris thing, and that's kind of been my kick, sounds like we're going to know a little bit more about Magneto's connection, and that's going to make a huge shift with Polaris. Because through this whole, it seems like she's started good, and it seems like she might turn bad at the very end of the season. And so just watching that progression has been very interesting. And it even makes me wonder, it seems like she's going bad, but she has some regrets about it.
Well, so it feels to me like they're setting up kind of a classic path for her to mirror Magneto, right? In Magneto's head, he was never evil. And the way this whole thing got started down that path was because, and again, it's exciting to me because I think it's deliberately being done to reflect things that are going on today, right? The IRA is an extremist arm of Sinn Féin, right? So you have two groups who were both originally aligned to pursue a political objective, and then they splintered and fractured because one group felt like the core group was being too conservative. You have, you have the Ku Klux Klan, and then you have white supremacists. And at various times throughout history, sometimes those groups are the same or synonymous or pursuing the same objectives, but then you have splinters and factions of groups that become more extreme. And I feel like that's what they're setting these guys up for. I feel like they're setting them up for a splinter group who decides they're being too conservative and holding themselves back. As Polaris, it was a perfect dialogue to set something like this up. In that scene I mentioned with Marcos, where Polaris says, why do we have to be the ones to keep fighting with one hand tied behind our back? And she's growing more powerful, and she has the baby that is, kind of pushing her to consider using potentially different methods, right, in an effort to defend her child. So again, it seems to me like very much like a perfect thing to set up for Polaris to take some number of mutants and splinter off to either join the Hellfire Club or just become a standalone faction of the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. And
it would be interesting. I hate to see this, but something dark happens, like Marcos getting killed and really setting off Polaris. I mean, could you imagine the rage that she would inflict? Nobody, could possibly be alive if that happened.
Yeah, I'm hoping they don't kill Marcos because I feel like he's a very quintessential character to this. But I can see something happening like her losing the baby and that causing her to flip out.
Oh yeah, that too.
And kill everyone. So interesting as far as what we're going to see next. So I guess the only other thing that we'll kind of speculate on before we get out of here is, have you thought at all about what, so apparently, I'm going to go with the theory I currently hold, which is Matt and Nick's planned this way the whole time. They're following through and carrying out an ending with the original plan. But between now and when they're back on TV, there is a large amount of time during which theoretically the Disney-Fox merger should get completed. What do you think, or what would you want out of any potential impact to the Gifted from that merger being completed and Disney/Fox now then having access to all of the characters and all of the mythology and history across both the MCU and the Fox Marvel universe?
So part of my theory for this episode is I feel like this episode could have been a cliffhanger, where they could have ended the season where you're led to believe that everybody's going to join up with the Hellfire Club. But I feel like it got renewed because now we know, okay, there's going to be 2 more episodes. So I'm feeling, I think they're feeling pretty confident that we're going to see Disney take over the Gifted. In regards to what I hope to see, if I don't see it in the next episode, I feel like maybe with Disney with a little bit more money, maybe they can pay to get more movie references, props, locations, maybe actors. I wonder if that was a part of the reason why we haven't seen any direct actors or references yet. So my hope would be, number 1, Magneto, and then maybe number 2, maybe like somebody like Rogue or a member from the X-Men showing up for like at least one episode. And it would be really nice location-wise if we got some references, or actually the group splits up and we get to see Westchester, and that they go by the X Mansion and see what's happened there. Maybe the X Mansion is in shambles, and that would be very interesting too, to see what's happened there. So the possibilities, and seeing them bring other characters from the Fox MCU universe. I don't really think that I need to see that in the Gifted.
Yeah, no, and so I'm of the mindset that I want to see them take. So I guess I would just as soon not see any of that interjection of any mixing of the 2 universes in the second season of The Gifted. I think Marvel and Disney need more time to figure that out. One of the things about the MCU is, if you've ever looked at the phases are 6 movies, which, as any comic book reader knows, that mirrors the standard comic book format of longer story arcs. Typically, a story arc in comic books is 6 issues, and they tend to be wired that way because that is also the size of trade paperbacks. So normally the writers set up an adventure arc, a resetting of the status quo to pack it into 6 issues, and then those 6 issues are bundled up into trades. The movies are structured the same way. Phase 3 ends, I think, with Avengers. I don't know if both Infinity War movies would technically be part of Phase 3, or if that structure is the same throughout all the phases. I was looking at it the other day, but I forget right now. So I guess my feeling is I want to see Marvel and Kevin Feige complete Phase 3 and not start intermingling the universes until they execute on that plan and give themselves the maximum amount of time to figure out how to work in the Fox mythology cleanly. Because my big concern and what I wrote on my blog is that this could very easily become very unwieldy and difficult and then messy. If there were going to be hooks into the Fox universe and the X-Men universe, Fox, X-Men, and MCU, I would not want them to come at it directly. One thing that I think would be cool, because maybe Fox could have done this before, but they didn't, I wouldn't mind seeing Franklin Richards show up on The Gifted. Now, Franklin is the son of Reed Richards and Sue Storm Richards. He is a mutant because he was born with powers. That would seem to fit in The Gifted. But maybe Franklin, because of his parents, has some different status where he's treated differently. And that might be interesting. I momentarily thought, over the last few days as we were preparing for the show, I thought maybe the way to do it would be to have a crossover episode with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., since they're both TV shows, and that's an easy way to do it. But my only concern is, one, The Gifted is supposed to be kind of an alternate timeline, and I'm like, well, do you really want to muddy the waters by forcing people to ask the question, like, in a world where there's still a S.H.I.E.L.D., how could the treatment of other human beings on this planet like degrade to right?
But S.H.I.E.L.D.'s indisposed right now, so.
Yeah,
I mean, Nick Fury's around, but Coulson and them are in space, so.
yeah. So I don't know. I guess the last thing I'll mention is, what's also going to be interesting is seeing what Marvel does now that they're on the other side after having waged the Scorched Earth campaign of abolishing the Fantastic Four, lowering the importance of mutants in the Marvel Universe and raising the importance of the Inhumans, right? I'll be very curious to see if the Inhumans just get thrown out like a baby with the bathwater, right? Like if they just go, oh, we got the mutants back, no need for you guys anymore, right? Or if they're just
cancel the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., everybody.
Right. I don't think they would get rid of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but I wonder if they're just going to back off of this whole Inhumans TV series, which has not been going well.
I thought it was done with because it was just terrible.
Right.
So, budget. Yeah. I honestly think that would be interesting if they did have an Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. crossover. It would be really good right now because the Agents of the S.H.I.E.L.D.'s kind of in like collapse right now, and Coulson's in space, so they could have something going on. Maybe they get back to Earth, and they meet up with the Gifted while and then S.H.I.E.L.D. kind of stabilizes this whole mutant thing. But I honestly think that it's going to be kind of like what we've been seeing. Is that you can mix and match from like Netflix, and you can mix and match from ABC, right? Because Agent of Carter, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., those kind of are in the same studio or whatever you want to say it. And Fox, I feel like, there's going to be like a Fox studio. Or Inhumans too is another, like the Inhumans can mix and match with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So I feel like it's these separate studios that all connect back to the movies, but they don't interconnect TV shows yet. So that's
Right.
kind of my analysis on that.
Yeah, I think where we are is they just need to take their time and not junk anything together in a rush, because there are lots of ways that a lot of these things could go sideways and get messy, despite the best intentions of all involved. So, Dave, anything else that you want to bring up concerning this episode before we close out?
No, I think we wrapped it up.
All right. Well, thanks so much, everybody, for joining in. Whether or not you swung by to check out the live show, or whether or not you watched the archive version of this on our YouTube channel at the E2KG Network on YouTube, or if you watch this in syndication over on GWW's radio network, also on YouTube. That's going to do it for me. I've been one of your co-hosts, Agasicles Stamus, channel admin for E2KG Network. And with me, as always, has been my partner in crime, Mr. Dave Pecci. We are the E2KG Entertainment crew. We shall return. And specifically, we'll be coming back in a couple weeks to talk about the season finale of The Gifted. That's going to do it for us. Thanks so much for joining in. We are out of here.